Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have sent a message to the board members, so hopefully they will be joining on the other board members on the committee. Okay. As we're waiting for other board members to join, we do have two chairperson Leisure, yourself, and board member Bejo are on the call. And every one of our staff and others are on the call as well. So we can begin when you're ready.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. This is the Teaching and Learning Committee meeting, and I'm Francoise Darcel Leisure, Chair of the Teaching and Learning Committee for the Hartford Board of Education. And I would like to have everyone please introduce themselves. And once you introduce yourself, just pass it off to them. So I'll pass it off to David Hopkins.
I'm not sure if you heard her clearly. She wants us to introduce herself and then popcorn it to the next person. So I'll start, Christina Santiago, Board Liaison, and I'll popcorn over to David Hopkins if you are on the call. As she. You might, sounds like you're having audio issues. So I will popcorn it over to Vanessa Diaz Valencia.
Hi, good evening. Vanessa Diaz Valencia, Assistant Director of Curriculum Instruction and Programs. And then you want me to popcorn it off to somebody, Christina? And I will give it to Ms. Zandra Lynn Gordon.
Thank you. I'm Zandra Gordon. I'm the director of the Adult Education Center, and I'll popcorn it over to Chief Avila.
Good evening. I'm Yvette Avila, Chief of Schools. And I will pop it over to Dr. Silver.
Thank you, Chief Avila. Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Bethany Silver. I am the Chief Performance Officer, and I will popcorn this over to Jesse Sugarman.
Thank you, Dr. Silver.
I'm Jesse Sugarman, Senior Advisor for Strategy and Institutional Advancement. And I believe Dr. Curtis is on the call. I'll popcorn it to her.
Thank you, Jesse. I'm Tiffany Curtis. I'm the Chief of Talent, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. And I'll invite Reem to introduce herself.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Reem Noah. I'm Chief Strategy Officer here at Adams and Knight. Dr. Curtis, do you want to popcorn
Yes,
somebody
to
else?
Hannah Wheeler. Thank you, Hannah.
Hi, all. Hannah Wheeler. I am a Special Projects Manager, and I will popcorn it to Stephen Morris.
Hi, everybody. My name is Steve Morris. I'm with Literacy. I'm the Executive Director at Literacy Volunteers of Greater Hartford, and I will popcorn it to Catherine Leonard.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Catherine Leonard. I am the Executive Director of Literacy and English Language Arts, and I will popcorn it over to Hannah Kay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah Keyser, and I am one of the Strategic Management Fellows working with our Office of Academics, and I will popcorn it to Dr. Negron.
Hello, everybody. Dr. Marilyn Negron, Chief of Academics. And I believe I am the last one, according to what I'm seeing on the screen. No, am I missing somebody? Oh, Nonda. Sorry about that. So I'm going to tag Ms. Bello.
I felt like the popcorn that didn't pop in the bag. I felt like a kernel. My name is Yvette. Good to be with everyone this evening and see all your faces.
Now I believe that's everyone. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And can we please have the agenda? Can you please share the agenda? Thank you. Oh, here comes David. Can David?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Hopkins. I'm the President and CEO of the Urban and Greater Hartford.
Great, thank you so much and welcome. So we're getting started, and our first agenda item is acceptance of funds for adult education, CEE grant. And who would like to?
Oh, sorry. We have, this is an item, these two, the first two items are items that will be on the regular meetings agenda. And for the first, we have Dr. Zandralyn Gordon, who's the Director of Adult Education, who will introduce herself. And I will stop sharing so I can share the presentation that she plans to discuss.
Thank you so much.
I can find the button. There we go. Okay.
So I'm Dr. Gordon, and I have Steve with me and David. They are, they direct the CEEs, and they will pop in whenever they think it's necessary. I figured I'd share some objectives with you, things that I hope at the end you will understand a little better. What are mandated offerings, and review the relationship between the adult education program and the CEEs. And then at the end, you'll see it fit to accept the money from the state. So just some background knowledge. Local school districts are required by law to provide educational opportunities for those students who have not completed their high school credentials. These students are supposed to be 17 or older. Students who are less than 17 are not provided for in our system. There's also provision made for what we call cooperating eligible entities to apply through the local school district for funding also. So in Hartford, we have three such entities. We have the Adult Education Center, that's on 85 Edwards, and we have the two CEEs. They've all applied for and obtained money from the state to run the program. The district is directly responsible for the Adult Education Center in Hartford, and it operates just like any of the K-12 schools. However, for the CEEs, the district accepts the money on their behalf, and they in turn take care of their curriculum and assessment and so forth. And those two entities, I don't think I need to go over that. It's the Literacy Volunteers of Greater Hartford and the Urban League of Greater Hartford. There are, in order to get this funding though, there are programs that are mandated, and we have to do at least one of these programs. The first one is the Adult Basic Education, and that is for students who have not gotten as far as grade 6. They are performing very low academically. Then we have the Secondary School Completion Program, which has 3 pathways that we could take. We could either do the Adult High School Credit Diploma Program, that is where they get additional credits so they can meet the 25 or 26 credits that the state requires from them. So that we would bring those credits that they had in the high school over to the adult education and continue to instruct them so they get more additional credits. And these credits need to meet the requirements of, I think it's for English or whatever that is in the high school. Then we have General Education Development Program, and those for students that kind of got to high school level but did not get their high school diploma for whatever reason. And we have the National External Diploma Program. This is an online, and they have assessors. Most of the work is done online, so it's for people who have a job and can't find the time to be sitting in the seats every day. They must have a job. There is also the citizenship that the state mandates we do for people who are born outside of America but came here and want to become citizens. And of course, there's the English as a second language for those people who don't speak English very well. They're not proficient. Next, please. In the Adult Ed program, the assessment program or process is a little different. We use what is called CASAS, Comprehensive Adult Student Assessment System, that has been nationally approved and used by all adult ed programs. However, I need to point out that in the adult education system, whether it's the CEs or the adult ed program as it exists at 85 Edward Street, the teachers are certified. And this is because our district makes sure that all our teachers are fully certified or they don't get a pass. So that's a good thing. I say that to say that they are well qualified to do the job. In addition, they do have an additional endorsement to teach adults. So I'm going to point out again that the CEs apply to the state through the Board of Education for funding. Therefore, when the funding comes, it comes through the Board of Education. And that's one of the reasons we're here this afternoon. Let's move on. So Steve, you want to talk a little about that, or about literacy program?
Yeah, sure. Not a problem at all, Dr. Gordon.
Yes.
So my name's Steve Morris. I'm with Literacy Volunteers of Greater Hartford. We are located on 30 Arbor Street in the Parkville section of Hartford. And as Dr. Gordon alluded to, we offer small group instruction, and we're really nice partners with Hartford Adult Ed, where we don't really duplicate services. If anything, we support each other's services. We offer the ABE, basic literacy, ESL, digital literacy. We a really nice partnership with Hartford in more so the GED NEDP program. We don't actually offer the GED, but we have what we call the GED prep or the NED prep. So for example, if a Hartford Adult Ed student is testing too low, because of course we use the same exact tests as Hartford Adult Ed, if they're too low, they get sent to us through our kind of tutoring service, knowing the areas to work on because we're using the same tests. And then once that student is in our program and achieves the score needed to actually do the GED through Hartford Adult Ed, we refer them back to Hartford Adult Ed. Our programs are offered morning, afternoon, and evening. We also do some other things. We have on-site childcare for students who would not be able to come to us without childcare. We have a career pathways program, which is alluded to on the screen, which helping people find jobs, build resumes. We have a food service job training program that's open for all Hartford Adult Ed students as well. And we do receive a lot of referrals from Hartford Adult Ed in that program. That program is 2 nights a week. And we have a chef who works with the students to gain culinary skills. While they're gaining those culinary skills, there's a classroom portion where they are working to earn ServSafe, which is an industry recognized certification. But yeah, I don't know if anybody has any further questions about what we do, but as I said, we really don't duplicate services. We just kind of support Hartford Adult Ed and vice versa.
Thank you, Steve. We do have a very close relationship and we work together hand in hand for the benefit of our students. Then Urban League. David, I'm going to give you a minute.
Yep, very good. Thank you, Dr. Gordon. I'm sorry, very good. Hi, Dr. Gordon. So again, I'm David Hopkins. I'm the CEO of the Urban League. We, similar to Literacy Volunteers, we are CEE. We're located in the Solomon Hill neighborhood of Hartford, sitting essentially just short of the north end of the community, where we target primarily Black American population, which is heavily populated by the West Indian Caribbean segment of the population of Hartford. And so students that we serve are, again, not necessarily, we don't provide GED testing, but we do prep as well. We operate out of our building, which is available for afternoon and evening courses. And so we try to maintain a level of flexibility so that the families can, participate in the program. One of the unique things about the Urban League, many people are familiar with the organization, but primarily know it as a civil rights organization. But one of the things that we do is really focus on economic empowerment through education, employment, housing, health equity, and social justice. And so we are a fully comprehensive nonprofit agency. And so those who are in our program have on-site access to our resources, again, similar to Literacy Volunteers, where we provide assistance with transitioning to post-secondary, continuing education with partnerships with community colleges. And then we also do job skills training so that once they do attain their GED, they're in a great position to be hired in gainful employed and promotable jobs. Our workforce development program also focuses on or provides programming that extends and includes those who are justice involved. So again, with that program, it's a U.S. Department of Labor program that requires the participants to have completed high school. And so that becomes a funnel for us to feed folks that we recruit into the program into our GED prep so that they can attain their high school diploma and continue in our programming. And so we also help and provide people with home ownership and financial literacy. So again, it's fully comprehensive, and we use our Pathways program even for our teenagers who are, again, maybe 17 or younger, that at some point will need their diploma. And so we work with them to once they become age eligible, they can get into our GED program.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
So with that in mind, we're presenting to you the amounts that the state is offering us, Adult Ed, and the two CEs. And for the Adult Ed Center, the additional amount is going to come from our district. For the CEEs, the additional amount that they need will come from their fundraising. So would you please accept our funds from the state? Or if you have questions, please let us know.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I'd like to see if anyone has, oh, I do see some hands up. So I'd like to call the attention to Board Member Bello, who has a question.
Thank you so much for your presentation and also our partners' presentations. Just so I can wrap my head around sort of what adult ed looks like in our system, and for the benefit of those viewing our session tonight, if you can give me a sort of proportion of who, like, does the majority of the people who need, for those people who need adult ed, are they the majority in our system, or are they majority in our partners? So just kind of, is it 75 and 25?
The Adult Education Center, I think, is the primary center for dealing with the people over 17. So most of the students are at the Adult Education Center. Our programs are the GED, NEDP, citizenship, and English as a second language.
Great. And just a follow up, about how many people a year are we serving through adult ed in our great city?
Last year we served adult ed at 85 Edward Street, served over 573 students.
Okay.
Our registration is normally a little bit more, but because of their circumstances, sometimes they don't come, and they're on the call students if they have done 12 hours or more with us.
Got you. I have a follow-up as well, but I'm
Sure.
going to pause for any, in case somebody else has a question.
Okay, thank you so much. I actually have a follow-up question to your question, Board Member Bello. What is the success rate or graduation rate, if you will, of the number of students that you have serviced who have gotten their diplomas?
I need to find out that our students don't graduate, and I do have some graduation numbers. In 2020, we had 31 students graduating from the GED NEDP program. The following year, 21, the number dipped, and I'm sure you understand why. There were 26 students. Last year, we had 37. So the numbers are getting back up there. Our ESL students don't graduate, they just need to be proficient in English, and then, because some of them are already have professions, they just don't speak the English language very well. So they don't graduate.
Thank you so much. And one more question. With regards to the citizenship classes, do you assist them these students in preparing for the citizenship class, or just being proficient in English?
No, we prepare them until they get their citizenship. We work with them until they get it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm looking, I don't see any more hands. No one has any more questions?
Yeah, I actually have a follow-up. So I understand it's not graduation for ESL and citizenship. Is there completion rates you can share or that this committee can get in the future?
You can get completion rates in the future, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That would be really helpful. I had another question as well. I know your partners particularly literacy volunteers of Greater Hartford pretty well. And there's some wraparound services so that totally get we're working with adults. And therefore, if there's an opportunity for employment versus education, employment, it trumps education every time. And that that causes the stop and starts, right? So I'm wondering, in our adult education center, in our work as a city, are there supports that keep encouraging consistent education pursuits? And what are those?
At our school, we have social workers. We have one social worker. We have a college and career specialist who works with agencies outside of our building to ensure that the students get what they need. They are channeled into colleges. So we have a relationship with Capital. Capital Workforce. We work with these people to make sure our students are well taken care of, not just the academic piece, but we try to help them find jobs. At the Adult Ed Center, we partner with, there is a Shiloh Baptist across from us, and they give us food all the time so we can feed our population. Our students have gotten to the point where they bring in what they don't need. We have a table and they put it on the table so others can partake. They bring clothes in. Whatever they have, they share. So we really have a nice community going, and please feel free to visit us.
Yeah, and I can kind of echo what Dr. Gordon was saying as well. And I think, when you think of adult ed in Hartford, and even as what we do at Literacy Volunteers, is really trying to meet the students, tailoring the program to the students. I mean, for example, we offer our classes morning, afternoon, and night. So to Yvette's point about, when a student gets a job, we're excited for them, but of course we tend to lose those students. But that's why if we can offer the services, okay, now you work in the morning, come at night and keep going. Because so many of the students, education is really an important part of their life and they want to go to that next level. But of course, bills and that type of thing are first and foremost. So creating programs that, even to Dr. Gordon's point about, offering food opportunities or different necessities that go beyond just the classroom, I think is really important to keep the student engaged, to find a time that works for them and have aspects of the program that are tailored directly to them. The students that we work with are probably a little different than Hartford Adult Ed typical students. We work with the lowest literate population in Hartford. So meaning that a lot of them are testing at a point where they wouldn't even probably be able to take part in Hartford Adult Ed programs because they test too low. I would say that our average student probably joins us with a reading level of about the 3rd grade or below. And so, of course, with that comes many challenges, and not just from educational, but career as well. But I think why we've been successful, this is our 50th year of serving Hartford, has similar to Hartford Adult Ed, is kind of creating programs that are not, are created with the student in mind first. I think that really makes a big difference.
Thank you both for those follow-up. I really appreciate it. And again, some of this I want to tease out so that listeners can understand the difference, right? Where to go first, and not just that we're going to approve resources, but we should talk about them and people should know about them. So and more than who already knows about them. So I really appreciate the time and the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, and I don't see any more hands up, so thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
And as I said earlier, you guys are free to drop off and enjoy your afternoon. Thank you for joining.
Have an enjoyable afternoon, and thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Christina, can you please share the agenda again? For our next agenda item.
Yes, we have contract continuation approval for Adam Knight. Am I sure? And we have Dr. Curtis on the call for this.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to give a brief introduction, and then I'm going to call our partner Reem in to give a really brief presentation because she has to drop off at 5:15 to do carpool or pick up for her son. So we're really super excited to be here today. I'm presenting an extension of the contract we have with Adams and Knight in an effort to kick off the next phase of marketing and branding for HPS. During this presentation, you will hear about our marketing strategy, our target market, and our intended outcomes. It's important to note that OTM is explicitly interested in kicking off phase 2 of our marketing campaign in early December to position the organization to be competitive during the upcoming recruitment season. Right now, our competitors like CREX are in the market running a campaign that asks potential candidates, what is your why? This phase of our marketing will capitalize off of our statement, represent, with a bold campaign that visualizes why representation matters. I'll invite Reem in to give a really brief presentation.
Thank you so much. And I'm sharing my screen real quick, Christina. So I have that here. You got it. Oh, wait, let me do this so you can see. I'm just going to do it like this. Can you see? Can everyone see this? Awesome. All right, great. So so thank you all for the opportunity to talk to you all tonight. So starting with the end in mind, we always say, what does success look like? So just really quickly, just a reminder, and I think it ladders up to what Dr. Curtis just said. Our goal is to continue to elevate our brand and really be recognized as a leading school system for teachers, staff, and students alike. We want to recruit the best talent, and we want to be a magnet for them. And then we also feel like the impact of this campaign and additional, pieces that we have planned down the line is really important from a retention as we continue to kind of induce that pride and build that pride in what it means to be part of Hartford Public Schools. That helps from a retention standpoint as well. Really quickly, in terms of our overarching campaign and what it was, so everything drove to, to the site where you could apply. So everything was driving there. We had streaming audio, meaning, radio, but we purchased it in a digital way, so it was more cost efficient and cost effective. We had paid search. Again, if we want to capture people who are looking and get them to our positions, we utilized social media very effectively, and we're able to target and use paid social ads to reach our audiences. And it was a very effective, and I'll show you with numbers shortly, and very cost effective in terms of our overall plan. Digital ads, digital banner ads, we were able to do mobile ads, marketing, geo-targeting and geo-fencing to be able to remarket when we're at events, for example, and then be able to get our ads in front of our prospects as well. Overall, our campaign drove over 14 million impressions, meaning like all of these, opportunities and eyes, reaching different people, through that paid targeting. It was around $132,000 that drove this. So our team wanted to make sure that we are optimizing the dollars to get the most exposure, to get the most opportunity, for the most people to be able to see this qualified leads into our system. That drove 47,000 potential applicants to visit that landing page to look for opportunities coming off of our ads, whether that was social ad, paid social ad, if maybe they heard the radio and went to the website, so on and so forth. Social advertising, like I said, was our most effective. It drove about 70% of those 47,000 people. That came from social. And display advertising was also very effective in terms of impressions. So if you think about in terms of people clicking from a paid social, people engaging with our ads and then going to that next level, social was really helpful in that, and paid search, people searching and they click. Display ads, just like the radio, tend to be more of that overarching awareness, and they all work together to really help us, get more, and that frequency helps with that engagement and those results. And our paid search drove over 12%, or the click-through rate was over 12%, and that is 70% higher than benchmark. So overall, we felt like this was a very effective campaign in terms of results. You'll see here the breakout. The nice thing too is that understanding that we have these, this budget and these dollars, and they need to be optimized. Our team was actively monitoring to see what channel was performing better, what ads were performing maybe better, and then continuously optimizing it to make sure that we weren't wasting any dollars. And you'll just see the breakout here in terms of the investment by channel, with the total being around that 132,000, the impressions yielded, and you'll see how it's broken out with between audio, display, social media, and the paid search, and the clicks yielded by each channel as well here. So really quickly, Represent, again, just a quick reminder of what it was. We really wanted to say we're looking for people, we're hiring, but not just any people who really our students can see themselves in them, people who will be these role models. And we had the awesome opportunity to meet your amazing teachers and staff and get to know them and learn their stories. And a lot of their stories really rung true to what we were trying to do with this campaign before even meeting them. The fact that they wanted to stay, they were students, and they wanted to stay so that so other students could see themselves in them because they didn't have that opportunity. We were able to learn from each and kind of tell what they represented and how that was important. And you'll see how, these were some of the assets created in terms of whether it was a flyer, direct mail, poster. From a social media standpoint, you'll see how we were able to kind of tell a story, and there was a paid, there was a caption to with each of these ads to kind of tell the story a little bit more, but represent opportunity, represent strength, represent respect, represent courage. And again, these words encapsulated the story that we were also able to tell. So we were able to take these photos in a way that also induced that pride, because they were so proud to tell us about kind of what they were doing, and we were super excited to get to be able to tell their stories. As we go into this next phase of our creative, representation matters. And we want to continue to, from a diversity, equity, inclusion standpoint, we want to continue to make sure that we are representing, and that we are, making sure that we can, that we welcome all. And from a multicultural marketing standpoint, in terms of targeted media, we're also layering that in from a channel strategy. So being very intentional about being even more diverse in our outreach. So this is kind of a preview into where we want to take the campaign as we evolve the look and feel. And Dr. Curtis, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. I'll jump into this slide, and in the rest of the presentation, I'll also invite Jesse in to help answer any questions that you guys may have. But we just want to talk about, like, 60% of the money that we will spend will actually go to the advertisement, like being in market. And that 60% that we spend on being in the market, on paid advertisement, we're maximizing by using Adams and Knight, because if Jesse helped us through the communications department get in market, we spend a tremendous amount of money trying to get into the places that we want to be. We want to capitalize off of Adams and Knight's ability to scale, bring this to scale, and reduce our costs by being all out in the market, right? So HPS is just not positioned in our communications department to capitalize off of what Adams and Knight can bring in terms of the scalability. And so this is the cost of the campaign, again, with about 60% of it being paid advertisement and the other percent being creative. And as you saw on the previous slides, we own all of that imagery. So we continue to put that out in the market, in the spaces that we can be in. But when it comes to paid advertisement, we do need to partner in order to maximize our dollar. And again, if we could just go back to slide 8, our campaign will be Representation Matters. Our previous campaign, we ran in English and in Spanish. When we did radio, we did English and in Spanish. This campaign too will be a bilingual campaign. The channel marketing will target explicitly the places that we want to target for Black and Brown candidates, Also, I just want to end with OTM is seeking to kick off our recruitment in very specific places like the U.S. Virgin Islands, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, and we want to have advertisement before we go to those places, historically Black colleges and universities. We want to have a campaign like Representation Matters so that we go with a message already in place. And we're hoping to have that message developed by early December if this campaign gets approved. And then I'll just end with the last slide just so you guys can see the numbers again in case you have any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for that presentation. And I'm going to see if there are any questions, but first, I do have a question with regards to advertising. How is there a way to, or not with advertising, have you thought about using some of that money that you would use for advertising towards sign-on bonuses, you know, sign-on incentives for teachers, you know, who you are recruiting?
Thank you for that question. That is actually a different set of funding that we have set aside in OTM already. So we actually do have sign-on bonuses for every position in the district. And now that we're in like October, November, the sign-on bonuses have changed a little bit because they're not at that 100% as if you would have been hired in August or September. So it's a little bit reduced, but we will continue sign-on bonuses all the way through like February.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And the other question I have is, and I ask this question often, how many Black teachers have you been able to hire based on your marketing strategies?
That is a good question also. I'm looking for the data that I just sent to the board last week. Let me get my hands on that data and I'll be able to tell you. But because you guys asked that question when I gave the presentation a couple of weeks ago, I believe, and so we sent some data around teachers of color. So let me get my hands on that data and hopefully I can share it before the end of this presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. And I will call on Board Member Brody. Board Member Brody, where'd you go?
I'm here. I never get off.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
I think Miss Bella was first. I didn't want to cut her in line.
No worries. You can go ahead, Shantae.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Are we able to quantify the efforts? Like, are we able to say we spent this amount of dollars and these are the amount of hires that we got because of we spent this amount on advertising?
So I don't want to say that we can make a direct correlation because what we can only do is look at the application rate year over year. So we can see at this time last year when we didn't have a campaign in market, how many applications did we have? And thank you for asking this question because this is a conversation that we did have with our partners yesterday because right now we're not in market. So we were looking at like, now that we're not in market, what does the applicant pool look like? But that's not really a fair question right now because at this time of the year, there are reduced applications anyway, right? Because of just of the time of the year that we're in. So we really need to go back and capture that application rate during hiring season and look at what it was year over year when we weren't running a campaign.
Okay. Because that's a struggle for me if we're asking to spend money on advertising, but we can't say as a result of our advertising for recruiting staff. We've hired this amount of staff due to that. I'm thinking, I don't know if when someone goes and apply, to me, it will be, it might not be this simple, but I'm thinking if you put a, like they can say, how did you hear about us? Or, that's, to me, that's simple to say. We can start saying they click that and is a part of their application. But I have a follow-up question as to, have we thought about hiring someone to be our person to advertise for us and not using an advertising agency?
Yes, thank you. We've had that conversation, and I want to invite Jesse into the conversation to answer that question, Jesse, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dr. Curtis. So yeah, that's a good question. And so I think one of the advantages, there's two major advantages that you have in working with an agency like Adams and Knight. One, as Dr. Curtis mentioned, is in the buying power that an agency would have. And so if we were to bring someone on board, one, that is sort of a specialized set of skills. And we would lose the scale and the buying power that Adams and Knight brings by representing Travelers and Hartford Healthcare and really big institutions. And so when they go into the market, they essentially represent all of those companies when they're looking to buy different pieces of advertising. So that's one. Two, they obviously also have efficiencies when it comes to developing creative assets, photography, things that we would need to bring in-house that would not be cost effective. And then the last thing I would mention is that, we do have a communications and marketing team. Having that team does help in this relationship with Adams and Knight. It does help to create some efficiencies from a social media standpoint, from, in providing guidance on development of digital assets, how we could utilize our website. And so that relationship is made more efficient by having our in-house team. But the two major points is the loss of buying power and efficiencies in creative development. And you would see that even across companies like Pepsi and Coca-Cola and Allstate. And, they may have a media point person, but they're all hiring agencies because they see the efficiencies in that as well.
The last thing I'll say, because that doesn't resonate with me, because number one, we can't say as a result of them doing this work, we've got this on this other end. So it might sound great with the things you've just mentioned, but it can't be quantified, and especially in a school district where we have extra funds now, but this has not been always the case, and it won't always be the case. So it's like we have this expense and we really are not going to be able to afford it. And we have a marketing department, and we're not trying to, build that up to do this on our own. So it sounds great, but because you can't make it make sense as far as people hire as a result, it doesn't make sense to me at this time. But thank you for your information.
I do want to add, thank you, Board Member Brody. I do want to add on the slide, a few slides ago, where it shows how many impressions we had and how much traffic was driven to our landing page for folks to see what's available and to apply. So in that regard, we do know that we had way more traffic than we've ever had on our website.
The other point I could add, I'm sorry if we have another minute, is just in terms of the value that you do see in the media. So the $120,000 in media that was purchased by Adams and Knight is a significant amount that would be, we would have less impressions if we went in the market with the same amount of money. There are instances where they have been able to actually get free media for us for other initiatives that I know for a fact I was not able to get for free when I went into the market. So there is value to that. Even if we were able to staff up appropriately for a media team, we would still only be buying for ourselves. So it's just something else to consider.
Okay, thank you so much. Board Member Bello?
Thank you. I guess I'm going to add myself to like the list of some of the things that I wanted to maybe circle back on at a later date or get information later to us. And I apologize if it's in something that you've already sent, Dr. Curtis. But you mentioned some of the areas, the targeted regions or areas. I'd love to get a full list of that. You know, Dominican Republic versus Puerto Rico is kind of one of my primary questions. And I know we have reach and are doing work through the APASO program. But I just would like to get like a sense of where we're actually targeting for multicultural, bicultural, bilingual educators. Again, I think that's a benefit for us to know and the public to hear about. Also, you know, kind of piggybacking, I love going last, Shante, because you know, you always jiggle my mind a little, and board member Ledger the same. I think board member Ledger asked about sign-on bonuses. I think on the adverse, it's like retention dollars. Are we putting in retention bonuses for teachers or educators, paraprofessionals, our staff really, to stick with us, right? To not only represent, but you know, acknowledge loyalty to the district, and that might be in a different budget. I get it, but it's worth mentioning. And then my last couple of requests is, you know, just like board member Ledger, love to hear the Latino numbers in terms of teacher representation. You know, after hearing and being in the last board meeting, language, dual language is really, you know, was heard loud and clear as a need in our district at all levels, right? Educators and administrators and staff to appropriately service our bilingual and not just Spanish to English, but bilingual community. And then finally, and this is a dumb question maybe, but in marketing, I know Nielsen is usually sort of the market trade in of the sort of the what is it, the industry sort of pulse keeper on what's trending, where marketing is actually valued, right? Is there a perception study that we can get from Nielsen, or is that something that's being fed to us already about what the consumers or what the target population thinks about Hartford Public Schools? My thinking is that's usually a better indicator of not just the numbers and what the conversion rate is to employees, but sometimes it's about how well our brand is being sort of associated, right? What is associated with our brand? And sometimes I think marketing, they might have tools for marketing, you know, measuring marketing efforts on that with that company, Nielsen. And again, I might be totally off base, but I'm wondering if that's any sort of industry standard around what's our perception out there? What do people think about when they hear about Hartford Public Schools in relation to this media campaigning?
Can I answer that last one, Dr. Curtis? Is that okay? That last question. So in terms of like from a perceptions standpoint, that wouldn't be Nielsen. We would need to actually do a brand perception study. We can through Facebook, and we've done this for other clients, be able to gauge on Facebook a lot more cost efficiently and quickly. So that's something that we can absolutely see and do and be able to report back on that in terms of brand perception. And if they actually remember the campaign or not, another way to kind of measure that. So we can absolutely do that and happy to. Jesse or Dr. Curtis, anything else you want to add?
Yes, I have a few responses. For the targeted areas, we're actually coming up with a one-pager that's like just 4 quadrants, because we have specific targeted audience in 4 different areas. So that one-pager should be ready about next week. Our sign-on bonuses, like I said, are already budgeted for. We actually do have retention bonuses that are going out in January to all staff. That's already been budgeted for, and that's kind of differentiated between certified, non-certified, full-time, part-time, things like that. That was communicated when we put out our incentive list. Definitely we'll disaggregate numbers by Latino representation of teachers and also went back and looked at the data that I shared with you guys a couple of weeks ago. And actually that was just broken down by Montessori teachers of color. So I will go back and get the breakdown for Latino teachers and teachers who identify as being Black as well.
And just one more clarifying point in terms of the one pager, I know, Dr. Curtis, that you're going to work on from a targeting standpoint. The paid media is not targeting the Dominican Republic at all. That's all local and you know, within a certain geography. We couldn't afford that within a certain geography. And we are layering in even heavier, you know, multicultural marketing, you know, in this round. So we're very excited about that.
And so what our one pager will do, will take what we believe will come out of the representation matters. So we're just forecasting what we will be able to take into those markets when we actually visit those places. So when we're in the DR, we're saying this is what we expect our brand and our message to be. And then lastly, thank you, Reem, for speaking to brand perception. I'm grateful that you asked that question, because one of the things that we've tried to do with this campaign just in general is to brand the district, is to get us out there in market. So thank you for asking, like, what is the perception? Because we just hadn't gotten there yet, right? We're trying to get our footprint out there, and we're trying to have something that's very consistent and recognizable. So because I'm not a marketing guru, I wouldn't know if now is time to check on perception or not, but it's definitely something that we can think about, we can discuss if we continue to be in market with this with the next iteration of this campaign.
And Dr. Curtis, to build on that, I think it's very important, right? Because you talked about, you know, competitor campaigns out there right now. So, you know, we always talk about people won't want to hear from you if they haven't heard of you, right? And so it's very important that we, you know, present ourselves in our differentiator from a brand perspective, and then, you know, with the call to action to join our team.
Excellent. And I again echo that, you know, activity and adding it to the timeline of all the rest of the things we have to do. And again, kudos to this team for doing the work and keeping us present. Yeah, I think the perception study also might give us information about what's holding people back from saying yes to our district for years to come, or maybe, you know, marketing isn't years to come, but maybe at least 5 months. But you know, I think it might be helpful to hear from that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have to be mindful of time. We have another presentation that's taking place on academic data.
Yes, we do. And thank you, sorry, all for joining the call for Adams and Knight, and et cetera. Okay. We do have a Dr. Negron on the call for the fall academic data, yes.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Today, we're going to be discussing the fall ELA academic data. And Christina, I assume that you're going to help me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just let me know next slide if I'm not.
Okay. So we can go to the next slide. And again, just putting in front of you the district model for excellence with our mission, vision, and major priorities. Right, we know that this is all related to high quality teaching and learning. So in the next slide, Christina, you can see the strategic overview itself. Of course, I am not going to read this to you, but you want to hone in into this box in the blue that lays out our 3 strategies within teaching and learning. And in the next slide, I also wanted to lift the major goals that had been identified, right, as part of our strategic operating plan. I do want to note, right, that these are the existing major goals, but they do not reflect, right, any of the upcoming scorecard discussions between the superintendent and the entire board, as it relates to the superintendent goal setting process. So I wanted to name that. Going in. And here again, you see the priority of teaching and learning, and wanna again highlight that as we speak about the fall ELA student performance data, that all of this, right, is to one of the purposes is how we progress monitor this particular strategy around ensuring that all students are accessing rigorous, culturally responsive curriculum and instruction that is aligned to the portrait of the graduate. But before we get to the actual review of the data, I did want to take the opportunity today to dig in and talk a little bit about the role of assessments, right? I know that often you might hear, well, how come we're always assessing and so many? And for the purpose of what? And who is assessing for what? And what are we doing? So I'm hoping that you will indulge me, but I do want to take this opportunity because it aligns itself to be able to dig in a little deeper here. So, you know, why? Why do we assess? There are mandated summative assessments, right? And by that, I mean culminating evaluations of student performance against a set of grade level standards that have to happen. And by have to happen, I mean that they are mandated, right, by our state. And that is why these mandated summative assessments inform a district's and a school accountability index, right? So all of this trickles down, right, from the state. And that those are pursuant to every Student Success Act, as well as general statutes that are here in our state. So as it pertains to those summative assessments, and we linked here the district assessment calendar, I want to lift that those are things like Smarter Balance, which often, right, you hear about, and things like, and by the way, Smarter Balance mandated to be administered to grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, as well as the next generation science standards, right, and GSS. That is also mandated. And that has to be administered to grades 5, 8, and 11, as well as the SAT, right, which is administered to grade 11. And then we also administer to our seniors. So those are the summative assessments that are mandated by federal, right, and also by state. In addition to that, right, we have what we call interim assessments and diagnostic assessments that are administered periodically because those inform, right, student knowledge and skills relative again to the specific domains and sub-skills that you see in the summative assessments. And also, I want to reiterate that because we are an opportunity district, meaning an opportunity grant district, like in many other large urban environments, we are mandated by state to have assessments that are going to progress monitor, and that we have to choose assessments that are within the state's menu of approved assessments. So that is why how different things come in, right? We have to have what is called a diagnostic screener, right? That is something that we have to have. It is not something that we say, hey, Hartford, we're not going to have one. We are mandated to have one. And our screener, for example, is iReady. And that is why we do iReady at the beginning of the year. And then there are other times in the year where we use it as a diagnostic. And that is why you will see in the district assessment calendar, you see iReady, right, listed 3 times a year. Because we use it as a screener, and we also use it as a district and interim assessment. You will also see PSAT, because in essence, that is our interim or diagnostic, right? Because it's going to inform the SAT. So I wanted to make sure that I took the time to explain all of that. I did link the district assessment calendar. Often you might hear something, well, our kids are testing every day. I'm going to tell you right now, that is incorrect. That is a misunderstanding that gets put out there like it's a fact. And particularly in this environment that we're in right now, where everything becomes a fact, just because somebody puts it out there in the air. So you have the district calendar. Every year we do our best to make sure that they do not overlap. There are weeks that are dedicated to that. It doesn't mean that you as a child are stuck testing for an entire week. That is a myth. That is not how it works. A school is supposed to develop a calendar to say, I'm going to then, within this testing window, I'm going to test this group, this grade, this classroom, right? So there's some work that needs to happen, taking this district calendar into account, okay? So again, those are the assessments that we do. Those are the assessments that are built in into our district assessment calendar. And then in addition, right, depending on a content that you teach, right, there will be other assessments that a teacher utilizes, right? They can either pull it in directly from their district curriculum. Sometimes they create their own. We always say there's no need to be creating your own, because usually when we select curriculum, we also look at the assessments, right? So that they can pull from those things. So wanted to start with that first, to try to, little by little, when I have opportunities, to continue to inform the myth that might be out there. So for the sake of time, I am going to move on with the presentation. I do want to say that I am joined today by 2 members of my team. I have with me today Vanessa Diaz Valencia, who she introduced herself at the beginning, but I will reiterate that she is our Assistant Director of Curriculum Instruction and Programs. Vanessa is going to walk us through how our children did in our early literacy assessments this fall. And right after she is done, she's going to move over to Katie Leonard, who is our Executive Director of Literacy and Language Arts. And Katie is going to tell us how our children did in our literacy assessments in grades 6 through 12. We're also going to talk about our actions and how we respond to assessment data. And then they're going to kick it back to me for a few more pieces, and hopefully then there'll be an opportunity for some questions. So for the sake of time, Vanessa, I am kicking it over to you.
Wonderful. Hello again, everyone. So happy to be here and chat with you about our iReady data. You can go, Christina, to the next slide. This slide just represents an overall snapshot of our student performance on the iReady diagnostic this fall. So 1st through 5th grade students, the window closed for them to take this assessment at the end of September, and for our kindergarten kiddos in the beginning of October. There's 3 tiers that are represented here. Tier 1 being our kiddos that are on or above grade level per the literacy assessment. And tier 2 are kiddos that are 1 grade below, 1 grade level below. And then tier 3, the red category, which would tell us 2 or more grade levels below that students are performing. Overlaying this with just kind of a, stepping us back to what the iReady diagnostic assesses. So just for, your own context, it assesses the foundational skills as well as language comprehension. So kiddos find items on the assessment in the domains of phonological awareness, phonics, vocabulary, literature comprehension, informational text, and also high frequency words. You can go to the next slide, Christina. This slide shows our overall performance across grades K through 5. Here you'll see, instead of the 3-level report, this is the 5-level report. So this gives us a more discrete understanding of where kiddos are falling across the continuum of proficiency. The dark green is in particularly important to notice because it represents like mid to end of year grade level standards. So those kiddos currently are on their way or have already mastered some of the grade level content. And so you can see our kindergartners here. And because this is kindergarten, you're not going to see the red and the light red shaded because they obviously can't be 2 or more grade levels below as they're kindergarten grade at this point in time. Our 3rd graders, this is actually very positive and reinforcing, thinking about all the work that we've continued to do across the last few years in foundational skills that our grade 3 kiddos now, so coming in off of K1 and 2, are showing the largest current proficiency of mastering the standards in 3rd grade. Go ahead, Christina, you can go to the next slide. This is just a further breakdown of the 5 levels by student groups. And so I'm not going to read off all of the data, obviously, but you can see on the left-hand side, both inclusive of our diverse groups of students, as well as resident and non-resident students, our students with multilingual learners, as well as our special education students. And you're up, Ms. Leonard.
All right, good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure tonight to talk a little bit about English language arts for grades 6 through 12. And so similar to the reports that Vanessa was just discussing with iReady, our grades 6 through 12 students take the Reading Plus assessment. And so you'll see here the dark green band and the light green band are above grade level and on grade level. This is the first year that we are having all students in grades 6 through 10 are mandated to take the assessment, so that this is, as Dr. Negron had said, a universal screen so that we can see where students are as a whole reader. And so we are taking a look at using this data this year to support closing gaps that we have, especially as you look to see the dark red bands. The yellow is 1 grade level below, the light pinkish color is 2 grade levels below, and then the 3 or more grade levels below is the red. And then Christina, if you go to the next slide, similar to the iReady report, we do have this data broken down by student groups. And so you can see how our students are doing, whether they're resident, non-resident, students with disabilities, or our ML students, as well as by different groups as well. And then would also be our overall performance. This represents where our students fall across all tiers. The green is, again, on or above grade level. Yellow is 1 grade level below, and then 2 or more grade levels below would be indicated by the red. You can see that out of 7,749 students, we have tested 6,348. And we continue to work on making sure that all students are assessed so that we can be making sure that we're supporting all students across grades 6 through 12. This assessment does assess language comprehension, fluency, vocab, and grammar. So again, it's taking a look at students as a whole reader. And then on October 12th, our students took the PSAT. And those results are not available at this time, but we will be sure to be sharing those with you as soon as we can. And so how are we responding to the data? So we created key actions aligned to professional learning, curriculum and instruction, assessment, and instructional coaching. Vanessa, do you want to speak to the K-5 at key actions?
Sure. So thinking about the professional learning that we've implemented in response to the data, as many of you know, we're continuing with our implementation and training on the science of reading through our LETRS professional learning. We've brought this professional learning also down into our early childhood team, along with leaders. So we have our principals going through LETRS learning and also our assistant principals. From a curriculum and instruction lens, we're continuing to monitor the fidelity and implementation of our foundational skills instruction block of the literacy block, which is inclusive of both Foundations and Heggerty. So Foundations being our primary phonics program or curriculum, and then Heggerty being the resource that attends closely to the phonological awareness domain. And then also small group instruction. So we made a large investment in decodable texts for small group. And so bringing those into the classroom in order for kiddos to access the code in small group in grades K through 2. And then continuing to look at those areas of the literacy block through both formal and informal learning blocks. Through the assessment piece, continuing to implement and revise our MTSS assessment flowcharts and framework. So to include diagnostic tools like the iReady, but then also embed some further diagnostic assessment tools that teachers have been utilizing and learning about through their LETRS work in alignment with the CSDE recommendations. So continuing to refine our understanding and think about what will give us the best picture of our children as readers and writers. And then through Key Action 4, instructional coaching. So really trying to think about our coaching supports this year and moving forward to leverage coach assignments and provide as many one-to-one coaching experiences for schools. So meaning that coach is assigned to that school full time instead of having the coach split amongst a variety of schools. Also, our K-5 coaches have started something new this year, which we are super excited about. Part of the LETRS learning, there is a component in the professional learning called a bridge to practice. And it's an opportunity where I've learned this theory now, right? And how can I apply it? So I learned about these new instructional strategies that are research-based. Now I need to go and do that work with children. And so we want our coaches to be doing the same thing and have the same experience while also modeling some of those best practices for our teachers. So we have required that every one of our coaches that are servicing a K-5 school is working with a small group of children daily. So they would be working in a small group with 4 to 6 students in the classroom during the small group time of the literacy block. And so again, they would be applying their own learning that they're going through on the science of reading directly to children, but then also being a part of the classroom for that small group allows them the opportunity to be modeling for the teacher and the teacher to be kind of getting some best practices and strategies as well.
Thank you, Vanessa. And so we have been working really diligently this year on the ELA team to bring coherence pre-K to grade 12, so that we are supporting all teachers, especially in grades 6 through 12, when thinking about how we're going to best support our students with unfinished instruction. And so with Key Action 1, with professional learning, Vanessa and I have been speaking with Lexia, and there was an opportunity for our teachers in grades 4 through 8, 4th and 5th grade departmentalized ELA classroom teachers, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th grade ELA teachers to take part of Aspire, which is a part of Lexia and is grounded in the science of reading. It's flexible, self-paced, and it's a digital solution that empowers all educators to accelerate literacy skills among students in grades 4 through 8. And so this professional learning is really taking as an extension of what's happening for our K-3 teachers, but it's also now happening for our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teachers. It's a little bit different because it's really focusing more on those middle school years. And so it's also, though, providing teachers with that bridge to application, that bridge to practice opportunity, so that they can use the professional learning right on their instruction the next day. Another thing that we are taking a look at as far as curriculum instruction is really taking a look at revisiting the Common Core standards and the rigor of the standards and best practices to support access for all students in mastering the standards. And we do that through also using our assessment, which would be our Reading Plus, as our universal screen diagnostic for all students in grades 6 through 10, and Tier 2 students in grades 11 and 12, 3 times a year. And we have an MTSS framework that is going to be updated and adjusted to reflect the aligned intervention practices and tiered supports. And so we have also invested in Lexia Power Up. So similar to K-5, students are either working on iReady or Lexia Core 5, depending on what it is that they need. And we identified with the Office of Academics and other content directors that Lexia Power Up could also be a support, especially for students that are still working on their phonics instruction in grades 6 through 12. And then finally, instructional coaching. So as Vanessa shared, we reworked our coaching supports to leverage coach assignments to have one-to-one school supports. And we've really worked diligently on making sure that our high schools have a coach that is in their building at least 3 to 4 times a week, and can be considered one-to-one. Maybe they're supporting one other school, but we've really worked diligently on doing that. And to extend that conversation, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Negron to talk about instructional coaching.
Thank you, Vanessa and Katie. So again, just taking opportunities where things are coming together to give you a little bit of more insight into the things that we are doing as part of our strategies. So as you heard, right, instructional coaching is one of the key actions that we're using to respond to student academic performance. And I wanted to highlight, what is it? Because some people might think like, what exactly do they do? Like, these are teachers, but they're not in the classroom. So like, what does their day actually look like? And I wanted to highlight that these are content and folks that have specialty through their experience and training, right? In not only the content, but also pedagogy, right? Those best teaching practices. And that we are utilizing them in a variety of ways to actually look at how to continue to support, again, honing in on student achievement via the support that is offered to the classroom teacher as well as to the school as a whole. So, right, often they might be serving in capacity of that, data coach. You just heard Vanessa and Katie like unpacking those assessments, but having a coach to be able to meet with those grade levels and say, hey, this is what that means when a child scores at that level, and teasing it apart to really identify what is this data telling me, and now, well, how are we going to respond, right? What is it that we're doing to continue to support children around those gaps? So they serve in that data coach role. Sometimes they're a mentor to that teacher, right? We have a lot of new teachers, and we know that it takes years right? To really be able to feel confident in what you're doing, the curriculum, being able to facilitate it. So they become that mentor for the teacher. Sometimes, again, they're the specialists talking to you about instruction, how to carry it out. You heard Vanessa saying, right? We have cases where the coach is in there with the teacher, modeling small groups, supporting so that the teacher can see it and then be able to replicate those best practices. But again, there's a variety of ways in which we utilize our coaches. In the next slide, telling you a little bit about what they do, right? Somebody also has to carry out all the professional learning. So when you see that calendar around the professional learning and the district days, often these are the folks that are sitting together with Katie and with Vanessa to actually plan how that is going to be delivered to hundreds of teachers across the entire district. So they're the ones planning it. Sometimes they're the ones delivering it. They're also the ones that support with fidelity of that implementation of the curriculum. So for example, now, right, we are just implementing new math curriculum. Those are the people that are supporting the teachers in understanding it. What does it mean? What are the moves? What are the resources within the curriculum to be able to support the way that they carry that out day in and day out in their classrooms? I already mentioned, right, the role that they play with analyzing of the data around the assessments and continuing to inform that so that we have a way to know, well, how are we doing? How are they responding? How can that inform, right, lesson plans and the instruction that happens day in and day out, knowing that at the end of the day, right, we're going to be held accountable to those summative assessments that the state has laid out for us. And they also support other things around the schools, right? Sometimes they do other technical pieces. Sometimes they may be facilitating family nights. They play a role in that. Sometimes they're supporting the schools around organizing the way that interventions are going to be carried out. Sometimes they help to facilitate school level PL. So again, I wanted to name that there's a variety of things that these individuals currently do. In the next slide, I also wanted to take an opportunity to speak about another myth that I know is circulating. Christina, so in the next slide. Often you will hear, hey, why do we have coaches? Having coaches is a luxury. I would argue that having coaches is not a luxury, right? Why shouldn't our teachers have the supports that they need? And at the end of the day, we name this as a high level strategy. And I wanted to take an opportunity to also give you some resources around, this isn't just the way that we feel. I mean, this is the research. So you can, in the slide deck, right, you can go in and you can search Desemone and Pack and all the work that they've done around instructional coaching. You can access that research. You can go to Kraft, Blazer, and Hogan, also speaking about the effects of instructional coaching. There's a lot of work that has been done here in our own state at UConn through Dr. Wolfen that dates back to 2012. So there's tons that speaks about when you see coaching, teachers that have experienced coaching and have been open to it, that has been correlated to student achievement. So I wanted to take an opportunity while I had your time to be able to share that information again. I am going to pause here. I know it's 6 o'clock. I know in the slide deck, we do have for you a piece around the curriculum review process that we are doing right now. So for the sake of time, I'm going to let you take a look at that, and also wanted to plug in the literacy event that we're so excited about. That it's happening Saturday, November 5th, 10 to 1, and great events that are going to happen that the team has put together. Hopefully you'll be able to come and join us. But I did want to give you an opportunity for questions. I know we're over time, but I wanted to pause because I'm sure you have tons of questions.
Thank you so much. And yes, for the sake of time, we do have folks who have left the meeting, unfortunately, because they have other meetings to attend. But I'm going to see if we have any hands up. This information was very informative. I do have a question with regards to the intervention that takes place. How is that tailored to the different pedagogies that are being taught? For example, and I'll put Montessori out there.
So I'm going to start, and then I'm going to hand it over to Vanessa, right? Knowing that and also to Katie. We do realize that the Montessori approach it's very different. We value that. We respect that. We're always looking for ways as it relates to the curriculum. You know, what pieces of the curriculum lend themselves well to the work that happens in the Montessoris. So that conversation continues to take place. But again, it doesn't mean that because they are Montessori schools that they're exempt, for example, from the assessments. So that is why we try to weave in as much as possible to make sure that there's due diligence to the district curriculum that is there and intended, again, to align to everything that we have to respond to as it relates to those grade level standards that are measured at the end of the year through the summative assessments that, again, the Montessori still have to take. But as it relates to the intervention, Vanessa, I'm going to let you jump into that conversation.
Thank you. I think, you know, the biggest point to say is that they have access to everything that we do still, right? You know, the teachers come to the letters training. We actually have some letters trained facilitators from our Montessoris. We have 2 Montessori teachers that went through our letters facilitator training. So they're certified facilitators. So they've really helped us and helped the Montessori teachers to think about the bridges between the Montessori practices and then the research-based strategies that we know all children need in order to become great readers and writers. And so I think that it has been helpful because they can then help the teachers see how what they're mapping out in their albums can be, the science of reading can be threaded into that, right? Especially when we're thinking about the whole child and the individual child's needs. And that way it can really all be a fluid process within the Montessori classroom, rather than, you know, stopping the model or whatever's happening with the model to then take, you know, a group of kiddos out for this specific intervention. And so that's what we've been trying to support them with. And, you know, room to grow, but we're definitely moving in the right direction. And like I said, I was just so thrilled to see those 2 Montessori teachers really buy into the facilitator training. I know I maybe have mentioned this in other board meetings, but just so that you know, our facilitators, in order to qualify to be a facilitator, you have to get an 88% or higher on your reading post test for both units in the letters learning. So both of them did very well and passed and got their certification. So really happy to have them on board.
Thank you so much. So with regards to the letters training, is this a different approach to reading, and what does letters actually stand for? Because it's if I'm not mistaken, it's LETRS.
Yes, so language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. And so, I mean, honestly, it's nothing new. It's just bringing some of the research that's been around for a long time to light, and really to give you a quite, a metaphor, I guess, that explains it. We all know that there's been a continuum of, not really a continuum, but a pendulum swing of how to teach reading, right? There's been these folks that live in this whole language camp where it's like, expose children to more books and they'll learn to read. And then there's been this other piece over here that's saying, no, there's a way to teach reading. There's a scientifically informed way that the brain learns to read, because reading is not natural, which is true and is evidenced through research and studies, and even, the new evidence that has come out recently. I think in Hartford Public Schools, we tend to stay kind of, I don't know, in the center of the pendulum for a long time. But we're just up front and center now, making sure that all of our teachers are braced with the knowledge in order to do what's best and what's right. And that there are some practices where the pendulum was swinging over in the whole language camp that really are not research-based. For example, in the early grades in K or 1, giving kiddos texts with words in it that they have not learned the letter sound patterns for yet. Teaching sight words in a way where we use flashcards, when actually 87% of all high frequency words can be decoded, right? They follow the rules and the patterns. There's no reason to memorize them off of a flashcard. So I think it's just bringing out some of those nuances and making sure that as a district, we're aligned to the most research-based practices that our kiddos need. And so I don't know that it was like a drastic change for us in the way that we did our literacy block. But again, definitely a gap in our teachers' knowledge. I don't mean to be taking up all this time and space, but as I shared before in previous meetings, I think our average score on the volume 1 of the letters assessment was like 58% or so, meaning that 58% of our teachers scored in the proficient area, which is also evident by the Connecticut Reading Survey. So definitely a knowledge, room to grow in that knowledge area. And we're seeing some significant progress in the quizzes and session assessments that teachers have been completing throughout the letters professional learning.
Thank you so much. And I see Board Member Brody has her hand up.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is more so how much we are testing. And I did want to just, maybe not a question, but a comment in regards to Montessori, right? Because we're asking small kids to use computers. It's just things that we ask that does not line up with Montessori, that I see that every time if I'm at my daughter's school, if someone can try to advocate for Montessori to me, they do. So I'm hoping at a later date that we could actually have a discussion, because now we have 2 Montessori schools. So we could actually have a discussion around Montessori and how in Hartford, in our Hartford Public Schools, like things we do, and it conflicts at time, and how could we better resolve that? So that's another, but I just want to plant that seed, because I don't think that conversation has ever happened. I think it needs to. But are we testing any less, or are we testing more? Like, is it a because I've always heard that we test a lot. I know with some tests that we discussed earlier, Dr. McGrone, you said we don't have a choice on some tests. Well, parents have a choice to opt out or whatever, but as a district to administer tests. But for the ones we are in control of, do we find ourselves testing less, testing more? And if there's any reasoning behind it?
So I would say that we always start with the idea that we do not want to overtest. We do not believe in overtesting our students. And I know, for example, back in 2018, 2019, we did a complete review of the district assessment calendar. And pretty much, if something didn't need to happen, we got rid of it. So we're not doing it. And that is where we then started with, if we know we have to have these summative assessments, and we know we have to have these screeners, right? Let's put that into the calendar. And then what else was the piece that would have been necessary for the progress monitoring? So that is the result of the district assessment calendar that you do now have, that I shared today. But again, I think often it's about thinking about per content area, as I mentioned, as a teacher, right? There might be, I finish a unit, I'm teaching a unit, I finish a unit, then there might be like a unit assessment that as a teacher, I need to provide to assess, how did my students do in this particular unit? So you do have those other pieces that come in, depending again on the content area, the curriculum that the teacher may be utilizing. So those are the pieces that also come in. But what I will reiterate, this whole piece about a child is testing every day of the week, not true. Absolutely not true.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we have Board Member Oliver.
Whoops. Yes, hello, thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. Because we're over time, it doesn't have to be tonight. So just, I was trying to type it in the chat and it got really complicated. So one of the things I'm interested in is when I joined the board, I learned the importance of understanding growth. And I know we saw some of those scores and where our young people are. And I just wondered, I know it's early, but I don't know if there is a way to just show, I mean, obviously, unfortunately, our young people weren't already in the green. It was literally trying to push young people up. So I'm just wondering if we just have something that could maybe either speak to that, or even if it's another chart that we get, that would be great. And then the other piece, I know we talked a little bit about, well, second question, curriculum, and a lot of the push is still to make sure we're doing grade level, right, curriculum, and not lowering that bar. So again, not for tonight, because that could be its whole other conversation, but would love to learn more about that. And then the last thing really quickly, I know the NAEP scores came out in terms of the impact of the pandemic on our children and seeing historic lows in some cases. And so that one in particular probably needs to be its own session, but I'm just hoping that we could speak to it because we knew our young people were going to be challenged because of what we all went through the pandemic. And so I'm really just interested in some initial thinking, knowing you guys are working very hard with it. And I do just want to acknowledge and thank you for all of the hard work, seeing the structures and the support systems you're putting in place for our teachers and our children. I think it's just so critically important. So thank you for doing that. Thanks.
Ms. Oliver, thank you so much for the question. I do want to just briefly give you a highlight as it relates at least to growth, right? Because it coincides with the whole piece around what we're seeing nationwide, right? In those NAEP scores, and the fact that we knew, right, that our students were not at the level where we want them to be, and now how things have just, right, been exacerbated by the pandemic. So more than ever, right, do we have to make sure that we're doing everything within our power to ensure that every child meets what is called the annual percentage of target achieved. So after all the years, the state had done great analysis that basically tells you, right, how much should a child be able to grow within a year's time, what is your own individual average percent of target that they should achieve? And what we want to start unpacking, and that'll be the conversation starting, as a matter of fact, tomorrow with our building leaders, is that we're going to have to do everything in our power to make sure that our eye is to make sure that every child reaches that 100%. Right? Because if we don't do everything to make sure that at least they reach their individualized growth target, we are never going to move the needle. We're never going to move the needle.
That's
more to come on that.
Great. Yeah, I really appreciate that, and knowing that focus and commitment that you have. Chief Negron, I really do appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And let me just look to see if there are any more hands up. I know we could go on and on. I know I could go on and on with this discussion, but unfortunately, we have to call this meeting to a close, and I'm sure this will definitely come up again. And we're looking forward to continuing this discussion at a later date. So thank you, everyone who presented. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the clarity. And this meeting is officially adjourned. Have a great evening, everyone.